Hello there. Welcome to the Healthy Enterprise. Thanks for listening. If you're a return listener, thanks for coming back. And if this is your first time, then welcome to the show. My guest today is Laura Lampa. She's the owner and CEO of LML StoryLab Consulting. She specializes in science, communication, and precision storytelling. She is a scientist turned communicator, and Laura's approach blends analytical precision with narrative depth to transform complexity into clarity. So, let's meet Laura. Okay, Laura, thank you for joining me today on this episode. Looking forward to hearing about what you do and your experience working in the healthcare industry. And so why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and your company?
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. As you said, my name is Laura Lampa, and I started a company called LML StoryLab Consulting just about a year ago now. And I actually help people in the ag tech and food technology space, so the life science space and food technology, with better communications and their marketing strategy.
Excellent. Now, that's reading through your history. That's not where you started. You actually started in science.
I started in science. So I actually started as a scientist at the bench. I studied microbiology, thought I wanted to be a bench scientist my whole entire life. And, as you start to grow in your career, you get pulled away from the bench and you start leading teams and strategy and things like this. And that's where I sort of learned, actually, the skill that I really want to develop and that really is engaging me is communication. I felt like you can unlock so many conversations, ways of thinking, and connections with others just in the way that you select a certain word over another, just in the way that you communicate and the visuals that you design. So that was really engaging, and that's sort of what led me ultimately to transition over to communications.
Okay, well, that seems like a natural fit then. Okay, so now just so we're clear, being on the bench isn't sitting there waiting for your turn on the court, right? Your bench is you're actually working at the lab stations.
Yeah, bench is the lab station. Stuff. Doing the hands-on stuff.
Right. And what part of that did you like? There was aspects of that you enjoyed, and
I love.
What was your passion about biology in that?
I think that there's this, I've always had this natural curiosity. I wanted to know everything about anything. And that offered the opportunity to answer some of those questions. You ask these questions when you're a kid, right? Everybody's had their parents tell you, just because that's the way it is. I always found that so unsatisfactory. And so I saw science as a vehicle to kind of answer those questions for myself and ask those better questions. So that's really what fueled the passion there. And then the other piece of that is wanting to help other people, whether that be designing better medicines or better food. That was really, a driving force of me going into science.
Is that the area of science that you were actually working in?
I was working in ag tech space, and, my very first job was at Monsanto company, actually. And I was just doing some, very entry-level work. And then I left and I went to Kaiser Permanente, tried my hand at clinical. I was working in their in vitro fertilization lab, helping others have babies. And it was satisfying, but I really missed basic research. And so I went off and I found an early stage startup called AgriQuest. We were located in Davis, California at the time, and we were working on biologicals. So instead of making crop protection products, so pesticides, fungicides, or even probiotics for plants, instead of doing that out of chemistry, we were making those out of microbes, finding the natural compounds that microbes make in order to make plants more healthy and resilient to pest and disease naturally.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so then at what point did you wake up one day and go, I really feel this entrepreneurial urge to work for myself and run my own business?
Well, that is a little bit of a longer story.
Okay, well, we got some time to fill, so let's hear it.
So after working at AgriQuest, I'll start there. I was there for about 5 years, and I got to wear a lot of hats, as you do at a small startup, and got to rotate through all the labs. I always kind of describe it as instead of getting my PhD formally, I kind of got my mini PhD on the job.
Right.
5 years into that, Bayer Crop Science purchased us, and I was able to just at that time wear one hat, which maybe seems boring to some people who enjoy the thrill of novelty. But what that really enabled me to do is start to focus on my development and what I want to do next. And one of the things that got thrown into my lap at that time was, hey, you like to talk about what we do here. Why don't you be one of the tour guides? And at that time, our site was called the Global Headquarters of Biologics for Bayer Crop Science. So we were hosting industry nights, we were hosting friends and family nights, we were inviting media, legislators, in addition to our own internal people, technical and non, who wanted to come and visit California and see what this new biologics, division was all about, business unit. We were getting something like 3,000 plus visitors a year.
What? Wow.
It was insane.
Wow.
It was me and a few others who were hardcore dedicated to doing these tours.
Right. Was it on the list with Disneyland and everything else?
We're going to stop by.
Do a stopover for a happy hour at Bear Corp or whatever.
Yeah. We were putting on so many events, right? And then it was interesting too. We were the first crop science, large site. They had little field stations, but we were the big first, big research center in California. And so people, like our sales team, for example, it was like, meet your quotas and we'll have our next team meeting in California and at Biologics, headquarters.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a treat sometimes too, right?
Yeah.
That's how we ended up getting so many visitors. But, through giving all those tours and being at capacity and trying to recruit other science to give tours, we started to realize a couple of things. A, we weren't good at communicating our science to all sorts of people. We were good at communicating science to ourselves, right? To other scientists or other people who had a technical background. And then the other piece of that was other scientists we found were hesitant to provide tours because they were also nervous. They were nervous about engaging legislators, or they were nervous about engaging media, or they were nervous about engaging executives. Like, how do you talk about it without being nervous? So we actually put together, me and two other scientists, volunteer scientists, we put together a curriculum teaching others to be better science communicators. And through those experiences, I started to become a better communicator and realizing the power of words. I started having much more engaging conversations with people on my tours. It just became really fun. So that's when it clicked to me that, oh, this is science communication. I really like this. Well, that's a piece of science communication, right? I really like this. Mm-hmm. How do I keep going? How do I keep pursuing that? Mm-hmm. So then I started to pair up with different, functional groups within our organization, regulatory affairs, government affairs, and going out and doing, external facing engagements with them, seeing if I could tag along on any sort of internal projects that they had. That eventually led me to being responsible for developing and writing one of our internal science newsletters, communicating our science to the rest of the organization, and mainly targeting our non-technical employees. So that was a ton of fun. I loved it. 11 years into Bayer, our business unit was divested to a synthetic biology company called Ginkgo Bioworks. And by that time, in my career, I had went from the bench, to team leadership, lab leadership, to R&D leadership. And then I started to go into more operations and business enablement roles. And so when we transitioned companies, I was in that business enablement team. So I was given the task of doing change management, change communication,
right?
Which eventually got the attention of our head of HR. And she said, do you want to come and do a short-term assignment with me and help me put together a communication strategy for the team? So I did that, which eventually led me to doing internal comms. Our head of internal comms said, do you want to just do this full time? I said, sure, why not? So that's how I fully transitioned. The sad story of this is, and also the impetus for me starting my own business was when Ginkgo went through a downturn, like so many others in the industry right now, right? They had to cut back quite a bit. And I was part of the first round of layoffs where they laid off around 35% of their workforce. Wasn't a total surprise, but it did come sooner than I anticipated. And so for me, I said, God, I do not want to stop the progress that I've made over the years, right? It took me all these years to finally officially transition over. I want to keep going.
Yeah, for sure.
And I kept seeing all these posts online, been looking for a job. It's been 6 months. It's been 9 months. It's been a year. And I thought, I just do not want to, I don't want to wait. I want to keep going. I want to keep growing. So I started my LLC.
Nice. And so that's where LML StoryLab began. And how did you find that transition going from working in a corporate environment to working for yourself? I mean, it's a little lonelier.
It's a lot. It was actually not a super easy transition. Like you said, it's lonely. I had to adjust to not having coworkers.
What year was that? Did you do that?
Just last summer. So
last year. Okay,
I'm just coming up on my 1 year anniversary.
Right.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride, to be honest with you. You don't realize how much other functions do for you when you work for an enterprise. Organization.
You mean all the other operational departments and things like that?
Yeah. The accounting, the bookkeeping, the business development, the marketing of it all. It's just now you're a solopreneur. You're doing it on your own.
Yeah. You're doing all those things. You're wearing every one of those hats.
Wearing all those hats that you've never worn before. Right. And you're learning it on the fly. You're learning it while you're doing it.
So which ones hit you the hardest? What's your biggest obstacle? Well, I mean, at the beginning, what was your biggest obstacle in all of that?
Probably time management. I'm usually pretty good at time management. If you look at my calendar, I'm one of those people who color code everything. You schedule, when you're going to get up and take a walk. You schedule when you're going to have your lunch. All of these things.
Right.
But I say time management because I didn't know how long some of these things would even take me, right? I'd never done them before.
Right.
So I found myself working through breaks that I had scheduled for myself, struggling to understand how a piece of software works or new technology or what the best platform was to use for some of these things, bookkeeping and what have you and whatnot. So time management was a big thing for me in the beginning. Yeah,
and the beginning is always a steep learning curve too. Like you said, you're bringing on, you're creating new systems, you're creating new ways of doing things, reorganizing yourself. Yeah, it's a huge step in becoming a solopreneur and working with yourself. And I don't know about you. I mean, I've been down that road before myself, and distractions for me were a lot. It's like your phone rings, someone's it's somebody you have a conversation. Then you think, I should make something to eat, and I don't know. You just kind of like things pop up, and then I forgot to throw my clothes in the dryer. Because you're also at home, and so you got all this house stuff around you that reminding you to do things. You're running into that right now?
Oh my gosh. The funny thing is, yes. And, your coworkers, I have 2 cats. So those are my coworkers and they love to sit on my lap. They're not used to me being home full time.
And they're really inappropriate because they're always laying down on your desk, right? Good thing your other coworkers didn't do that. Then you'd really need an HR department.
But yeah, I think it was. And then to your other point, right? You're working alone, and so you don't have that same network that you do. I think that was another big challenge for me. So finding or making the space to stay really active in professional networks or in professional communication circles, maintaining a pulse on what's happening in the industry that I serve. All of those things take time. and you figure out how to plug it into your day somehow.
Yeah. 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 And then I guess you had another layer is that, you came from science, which is very collaborative environment. You're always working with others, connecting with others, sharing data.
Yeah.
And now you're not as collaborative a space. I mean, it's collaborative when you're working with somebody like a client, but when you're not, there's no one really else to kind of bounce ideas off too. So that can be tough.
Yeah, it can feel isolating, but I think there's a lot of strategies that you can, employ in order to make it not so isolating. One thing is networking, and not just in the traditional sense. I remember having a past colleague reach out to me, and she said, "Who would you recommend me to network with?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she says, "Well, who would be strategic for me?" And I thought, I don't know, because I don't think of networking that way, right? When I'm doing it, it's because I sincerely care about cultivating the relationship or reigniting the relationship, maybe if it's been a while, because I
Right.
like that person, because I respected that person, because I think that person has something of value to offer me in terms of maybe advice or whatever, right? And so I think it's about mentally staying plugged in, but also continuing to build those relationships or some of those strategies that are going to be helpful for you if you want to ever be a solopreneur, if
Right.
anyone out there is listening.
Right. And now networking for you also means sales, right? It's sales and marketing, pitching yourself, pitching your company, and networking that way. So not only networking with other experts that you can collaborate with, but also networking so that you can find new clients.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about, networking with people that are already in your circle is you get the opportunity to safely tell them what you're up to, right? They already know you, they're not judging you.
Right.
But they give you that practice for when you go do it cold or to somebody new that you've never met before. And so anyways, yep.
Okay, so tell me now, what's the vision? What do you want to do with LML? What's your kind of tell me about your 2 year goals and what are your 5 year goals from here?
Gosh, so my vision looking ahead, like I told you, I spent most of my career, all my career, focused on ag tech, right? And I'm really, really proud of the work that I've done in that space. I think looking ahead, my vision is to become even a more better, well-rounded communicator across the full spectrum of life sciences. So for me, that means deepening my knowledge in areas like pharmaceutical space, really understanding how communication needs shift across different parts of the industry. So, one of my goals is to start working within pharmaceuticals, and really understanding what it means to connect to patients, to doctors, to people that are associated with the healthcare industry, and not just growers, farmers, distributors, and people who I normally think about in ag tech. And then, the other piece of it is growing it in a way that's sustainable for me. So, there's only one of me, right? So I can't be a fractional CMO for 5 different people. It's just not going to work. I'm not going to have the bandwidth. I'll burn out. So I think about ways, how can I grow my business? How can I keep my name out there and do it in a really sustainable way, but also in a way that speaks to my values and what I care about? So I think about things like, well, what does it mean to grow my business in a way? Maybe I'm developing tools and templates so people can go out and develop their own communication strategies without me being their hands-on. I just kind of give them the tools to go and do that and think about it, a framework, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Or what does it mean to build and develop workshops so that I could reach a lot of people at once, but still have a big impact, right? So I think about
Right.
things like that.
Yeah, workshops like engaging with people, whether it's virtual or in person too, right?
Yeah.
Do you find where you geographically where you are, you have access to a lot of networking opportunities?
In Northern California, I feel that there's quite a bit of opportunity and networks here. But I've also built really powerful connections online with people in Canada or other parts of the United States. But it really does take, you being very intentional and focused and maintaining that, right? Like, I'll put it on my calendar. I'll put a reminder on my calendar. Reach out to so-and-so. Reach out to 3 people today, right? It's part of my goals. It's part of my goals.
Right. Which is smart because, I mean, it's easy to just sort of, the day goes by to, be busy with a lot of variety of different things. And without those kind of reminders, they kind of slip past and you think, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then the next thing you know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks have gone by and, you've lost that sort of like momentum.
Yeah. Yeah, we do it in our personal relationships all the time, right? You mean to reach out to your friend or your mom or whatever, and then you realize, oh, it's 10 o'clock at night. Well, it's too late now. I'll do it tomorrow. And, same thing all over again. But I find if I schedule it, make it part of my daily task, then it gets done.
Have you found any resources, books or podcasts or anything that you subscribe to or have picked up that have given you some techniques to implement?
One of the books, I actually pulled them down off of my bookshelf because I wanted to share them.
Oh, right on.
This is one of books that I really highly
Don't
recommend.
be such a scientist.
Don't be such a scientist. So, it's geared towards people who are working in science or technical fields, but I actually think it's good for anybody to read. It's pretty funny the way it's written. It's pretty insightful. And, the author, Randy Olson, he gives a really nice reminder that to reach people, it's not being technical. It's not being, logical. It really is through authenticity and personal connection. And then the other one that I really liked, especially if you're kind of going into leadership or whatever, is Love as a Business Strategy. Have you ever read this one?
No.
This is great. So this kind of challenges the way you think about traditional leadership, and it talks a lot more about, leading with empathy and shaping your culture through empathy and trust. So this is a really good one too. I enjoyed it.
Those are great. That's great. Thanks for sharing those. They're both titles are very intriguing, like right out of the gate. So I love the part with talking about scientists, don't be such a scientist. I mean, it's kind of like don't be such an engineer or don't be such a marketer. I mean, you could probably put any term in front of, behind that sentence. And we do get wrapped up in our work speak, depending, doesn't matter where you are. And in some cases, it's actually useful. If you are actually you're a scientist and you're speaking to a bunch of scientists, it's like a science party, right? But if you're not, and in any, engineers having an engineering party, and anyone else who's standing there going, I don't even know what
are you talking about?
Yeah. But you have to remember that when you're talking about a subject like science, but your audience isn't scientists, the message has to change. The way you say things does have to change. It's a very, very important part about communications, which I think is what you're building an expertise in, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And, one thing I learned, even amongst scientists, we could use the same term or the same acronym, but if you don't define it up front and you get too far down the road, you realize you're actually talking about two different things. Like that literally happened in a project once. We didn't, me and the girl I was working with, she was in bioinformatics, and we were sitting in a meeting with each other and we were using this term. And, she started to contextualize it. I said, wait, what do you mean when you say that? She goes, well, what do you mean? I said, when I or any other biologist says this term, this is what we mean. She goes, oh my God, that's not how we use that term in bioinformatics.
No kidding. Yeah. And if ChatGPT was there, he would say, well, you're both right.
Yeah.
But
the ever optimistic.
But let me clarify.
Here's the thing.
Depending on your perspective, you could use it either way. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that's a really big part about marketing is that, and communications is that you really we're translators, right? We're trying to translate ideas from one person or from one sort of concept and delivering that concept or that message to a variety of different audiences. And so what you're doing is always sort of crafting the message so that it's received. Otherwise it goes um it goes to deaf ears, or it goes over people's heads, or it goes it's too low, it's too, you can dumb it down too much for some audiences,
Yes.
and then sometimes it's just sounds too smart for others. So it's a very and it makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
It makes all the difference, I would say, right? Because everybody cares about something different. But here's the funny thing. Here's the thing that I learned through, the curriculum that we developed and all the trainings that I've gone through personally in communications, and then just my own personal experience. There's always, no matter how different you think you are from somebody or you appear, there's always something. There's a commonality, right, that you can find. So you can learn to speak that other person's language. You can learn about what they care about. You probably care about it too. And you can present that different angle, that different lens for them to consider. I think
Right.
that's the other piece too, right? Presenting information in a way where, hey, this is, especially science communication, consider this, consider it from this angle. Here's, instead of shoving it down people's throats, that's not going to work.
You're right. And actually I was just talking to a specialist in genetics, and our differences between each individual human being is as little as 0.01% difference genetically from one human to another.
Not a lot,
That
right? Not a lot.
Not a lot. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. So you're absolutely right about that. Yeah. What are you finding now with because I mean, you're crafting, so you focus more on communication, so you really are crafting that verbal communication or written language, or are you working in any other mediums as well?
What do you mean? Like,
Audio, well, audio, like, are you working in audio, video, and graphics and design and visual communications as well?
doing some graphic design, visual communication, like through PowerPoints and things like this, which I actually love
Mm-hmm.
doing.
Oh,
Um,
do you?
but yeah, what I love doing, my sweet spot is actually writing. What I think, anyways. I think that's my sweet spot.
Now, do you leverage AI in your work?
I do. It's funny because I've heard people be so, you meet people, they either love AI, they hate AI, they fear AI, they don't know what to think about it. And when I get into conversations with people, like, why don't you like it? I find that people tend to use it as a tool, and they'll try it once or twice or maybe even 3 times, say, oh, it doesn't give me what I want. The way that I leverage it is more as a strategic partner, a collaborator.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken the time to actually, you use whatever platform you want, DeepSeek,
Sure.
Chat, GPT, Claude. But if you take the time to actually feed it information about you, me, here's how old I am, here's what I care about, here are my values, here's some of my past writings, tell me what you think of this. And you start like having these conversations with it. When you go to actually collaborate and write, I find that I could fast track through some of that messy middle part that you get in, the
Yeah.
brainstorming, the refining, and you can actually like get into the meat and potatoes of it and really start to, here's the white space that I want to write about, right?
Oh,
So
very interesting.
yeah,
You know what? I didn't know that. Your bot needs to get to know you.
yeah, yeah,
And so really you need to date your bot so that they understand more about what you like, what you're about, how you like to talk, how you communicate. That's interesting.
that's
I
it.
don't and I would imagine too that that would happen organically over time using the same bot or using the same platform, that it would start to understand that over time, but you can fast track it by giving it that information in advance, like like a dating analysis. This is my likes and my don't likes. So there you go. Fast. We don't have
Yeah.
to mess around with that anymore. Let's just get on with it.
Speed date your bot.
I think you might have just had your own your book title there. Tips and tricks on how to speed date with your bot. That's good. I actually have never heard that before. That's an interesting point. Because it is smart. It is supposed to build on that information and leverage it to simplify the process. That's interesting. You're right, and people do fear it, and there is a lot of criticism about, well, did you write that with a bot? So with that you were leveraging chat to do our dirty work for us or to do our work for us. But you're right, you still have to provide the information. You still have to cross check it. You still have to verify that what it wrote was accurate. I mean, I used it today to help with a bio, and it actually got it wrong about somebody, and had I not read it, it would have gone out, and they would have probably contacted me and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm actually not the founder and the CEO. I'm just the CEO." But they picked it up. They picked up two job titles from a couple of different bodies of text, and it just kind of pulled it all together. Oh, well, he's the CEO and the founder, but it was two different companies. But had I not read it, it would have gone out, and it doesn't look cool. It's so you have to kind of just, you got to stay on top of it, even though for me, it's doing the typing. I'm a really lousy typer. And I find AI for me is like my typist.
Yeah.
And so I'll actually dictate to chat what I want to write. I'll scribble it out and write it down on my own, but then I'll read it back to chat and have it type it all out for me. And then I'll take it out and edit it. But that's for me. I'm a lousy typer.
I do the exact same thing. And I feel like I'm an okay typer. I'm pretty good. But yeah, and it hears you really well, right? Siri doesn't hear me very well for whatever reason on my phone.
She's awful.
Horrible.
She's awful.
She jumbles all my words. And okay, I'll give her this. I do have a slight lisp. but ChatGPT picks up my words so beautifully, and nice. You can just dictate what you want and then work with it. That's your rough draft right there. You don't have to type it out.
Yeah, exactly. So time saving. We can't. I mean, that's what the sciences community is leveraging, is the time saving capacity that it provides. It crunches data faster than anybody else can do, and that's what's speeding up right now, is the data crunching, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When we think about how AI is really disrupting the technology space, healthcare, ag tech, or whatever, thinking about how they're using AI-driven diagnostics, predictive modeling, and speeding up the whole early phase discovery process. I mean, if you could bring medicines to market or new ag solutions to market in 10 years instead of 15, I mean, it's 5 more additional years that you can perhaps save somebody's life, right? Or feed
absolutely
feed additional people. So It's really amazing. It's an amazing tool if it's used right.
Right. Okay. So now you are an entrepreneur. You are running your own company. Now, what do you do to when, you're working with somebody and you don't have the skills in your backpack to deliver? What do? Do you you try and find somebody to collaborate with in order to do that? Or do you just say, it's not my thing, and let them go and hunt for themselves?
It depends on what the ask is. I mean, there's definitely times where I've said, not my thing, and I've gotten talked into doing that thing anyway.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, I'll take the challenge. And it's a growth opportunity. But, and that's part of why it's so essential to build your network, so that I can call on people. Hey, here's an opportunity. Do you want to buddy up or pair up? Or at least, have somebody to refer that client to, right? I might not be the right person for you, but I know someone who is. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'll use those strategies, either partnering up with somebody or just wholesale, like handing it off to another person. That doesn't bother me either.
Now, do you see yourself as an employer one day, with a team of people?
I would love to get there. I do miss team leadership. I do miss having a team. Um, I miss the relationship building aspect of that. But I'd love to figure out a model where, I don't know, maybe I'm training the trainer and enabling others to start their own
Mm-hmm.
businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that would be fun.
Well, the world's yours for now because you're a solopreneur, and there's so many opportunities out there. Yeah, I think yeah, you're going to do great. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us about LML and yourself, that or any other sort of words of wisdom for new people who are maybe considering taking that giant leap of faith out of a secure 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job into the world of work all the time,
Yeah. You know,
7 days a week, 14 hours a day? Sounds fantastic, doesn't it?
I know. But so here's the interesting thing, and then I'll get to like what's my one thing. When I was working for an organization, there's stress there, right? You're busy, you have
Sure.
deadlines, and you're committed because you're working there because at some level you're bought into the mission, the vision, you like the people you work with, you're part of a team.
Yeah, your team player. Yeah.
Yeah, so you go, go, go. But there's a start and stop date or time usually, right? Whether it's 9 to 5, maybe it stretches 9 to 7, but
Yeah.
there's a little bit more work-life balance when you're on your own, and especially in the early days when you're just building it, creating your systems, setting those all up for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, trying to figure out how to do it all on your own. It's a different kind of stress because now you're working all the time, but you're doing it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So there's
And
a
that's probably where when you were talking about time management, that's where that comes in really, a lot more important, is that you're time managing the balance between working and living.
yes,
And the nice thing is you can fit the work into your life, right? And keep it that way if you're a fairly consistent person, but where you can find that balance where maybe you don't work great at 6 in the morning. Maybe you work better working, till 8 at night. You get
yeah,
up a little later or do something else. You can manage your own schedule, which is really brilliant. But I think you're right. Is finding that work life balance, because it can get away on you if you let it. Because there's never an end to how much you can work, and so you need to kind of put those limits. No, know your limit. Stay
know
within
your
it.
limits. Yeah, know your limits, and then find strategies to overcome your limits. I think so. Here's my one thing. If somebody said, "Well, I'm thinking about starting my own business. I don't know if I can do it." I didn't know if I can do it either. I didn't grow up thinking, "Oh, one day I'm going to be a business owner. I'm going to be an entrepreneur." I never saw myself that way. And even when I first started to conceive of this idea, that negative voice inside my head said, "You're crazy." Like, you can't do this. So my one thing would be, yes, you can, but go in with your eyes wide open, know what you're getting into. But absolutely you can. And it's really about, not having you don't have to have the most polished thing going into it. My website sucked. I still think it sucks, just it could probably be improved, but who cares? I launched it, I got my name out, and I've, got 4 clients right off the bat.
Yeah,
And it's just about showing up steadily but surely, doing the work, building up your credibility and your trust with people, building your network, and you absolutely can do it. That's the thing.
absolutely. Good advice. Okay, where can people find you and get more information about you or connect with you?
Well, if you want to connect with me, I'm always on LinkedIn under my name, Laura Lampa. That's where I post pretty regularly content on science communication and leadership. And then you can also check out my website, LML StoryLab.com. And I just started a Substack, so if you want to read some longer form articles where I kind of dive into where that intersection of where communication and leadership and science kind of meets, I'm on Substack under my name as well, Laura Lampa.
Very good. Well, Laura, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And I wish you the best of luck with LML StoryLab and your big career ahead of you. So thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Heath, for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Okay, that was great meeting Laura at LML StoryLab Consulting. She has some good points there. Networking is crucial for building relationships and finding clients for her. Also, maintaining professional connections is essential for staying engaged in her industry. It's also a way to avoid some loneliness and does foster more collaborative relationships. She said AI can be leveraged as a strategic partner in writing. She doesn't fear it. She embraces it and finds a way to make it work best for her. Her advice for new entrepreneurs is that it's important to manage a work-life balance as a solopreneur. And she gave us 2 great books to look into: Don't Be Such a Scientist and Love as a Business Strategy. Thank you so much for joining us today, and stay healthy, and we will see you again soon.